Hi, everybody.
Fantastic. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Visiting Broadway. I think this is week 6. Honestly, I can't keep track of them. I should look that up before we start. For everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube, my name is Bobby, and my lovely co-host, Miss Linda, is just checking on our Facebook feed.
I am.
That we're live.
And I see it.
Oh, wonderful.
I see that we're live on Facebook now on Experience First Facebook page. And so want to welcome anybody who's watching here, who's watching on Facebook, on YouTube. And if you're watching on any of these places and you want to send a comment in or a question, I think what's really fun about these is to make it as interactive as possible.
Right.
So you might have a question about anything in New York, in the Broadway Theater District, about tour guiding in New York, in the Theater District. You might have a question for our fabulous guest who's about to come in the room in a minute, or something for me and Bobby.
Ask anything. If we don't know, we'll do the tour guide trick, which we've covered several times on this series up until this point. So today we have a really cool episode and a really cool guest. Our episode theme for the day is multi-hyphenate, and this is actually a new word, but it describes something that I think has existed, especially in our community, for a very long time. It makes me think of Mr. George M. Cohen, where we actually begin the Inside Broadway tour, which is, where this whole show was kind of birthed. They used to call him like an octuple threat because, he didn't just sing, act, and dance like a triple threat does. He produced, he wrote, he composed, he directed, etc. So the concept of a multi-hyphenate has existed for a long time. It's just we have a really cool trendy word to use today. And I'd like to think me and Linda are both multi-hyphenates. Linda, you've worn a couple hats over the course of your life.
Yes, I have. I mean, I've done, I have. And I know you have.
We've done all the things.
I think that our guest today, I mean, man, oh man, it's funny because I remember when back in acting class, which wasn't that long ago, that I was studying at HB, and I remember the teachers there, one in particular, he always used to say, you have to make your own, if you can't find work, make your own opportunities.
Right.
Make your own work and write something and star yourself in it. And wow, this woman that we're about to bring into the room is a perfect example of someone who did that. But she's more than just somebody who wrote a piece of work for her to star in. She's actually just like this, of all the people I know, she's one of the most greatest force of nature. It's like she has to create, like an artist,
Right.
She has to do it.
Right.
And she is a true artist in that sense. And so I'm really happy that she joined us today. And we're going to show some clips and pictures and talk about some of the work that she's done in all the different capacities that she's done them. And also we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about tour guiding and some of her favorite spots in the theater district.
Because she's also a tour guide. So not only...
That's how we met. Yeah, it was funny how we met. Actually, no. Well, we'll talk about that once we bring her in.
Right. And her name, by the way, we're about to play a clip, but her name is Rory. Rory Noji. Noji. I just want to make sure that
if I'm mispronouncing it, she'll tell me when she comes in.
She's going to tell us. I'm sure she's probably itching at the post to get in. So we're going to play this clip. This clip is from her original musical. She wrote the book, music, and lyrics to this, and I believe she starred in it.
And directed it. And did she? I don't know. She'll tell us if she directed it.
She's going to tell, but we're going
to.
Right. It's played festivals. It's had a full-on production in New York City. So without further ado, I'm going to play this clip and then we'll bring her into the room. So just one moment. And here we go.
So Rory's the one in the white shirt. This was Siren's Den.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm going to pause it. Sorry. We are back, and Rory come along and join us. In 1 second, I just asked her to turn her camera on, so takes a second.
Rory!
Hi!
I've been in the green room.
She's been in the green room, chilling.
Do
How
you
are
have
you doing?
snacks?
Oh,
M&Ms, yeah.
that's my
Thank you for
favorite
that.
part of the green room is snacks.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that sweet intro.
Well, it's more
You're
than
welcome.
deserving. I should have said more, but I have it. You know, that reminds me. We didn't do a safe word today, Rory. I tend to talk on and ramble, so we need a safe word. I think the safe word today is hyphenated.
Hyphenated, okay.
If I start to ramble, somebody scream that word, and I'll shut up.
Hyphenated! Okay.
Oh, firstly, it's no-gi. It's a hard G.
Okay. Oh no. See, we
No, it's
both
okay.
murdered it.
I hate it. It's fine. Also, I did not direct Siren's Den. That was the wonderful Dennis Corsi. I really don't have an eye for directing. I
Okay.
sort of give someone the piece, and especially if I'm on stage, like I don't want to direct myself. I need someone else's vision to help shape everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Rory. What was the, tell us a little bit about Siren's Den, because I'm sure that we'll see it again someday when the world comes back. Because Siren's Den was very special, and I'd love to know what was your inspiration. Tell us about the plot, how you came to create this massive work of art.
Sure. Well, the plot, in short, is that a young, aspiring singer-songwriter begins writing music because she's obsessed with this like rock idol, and they end up meeting in New York City. So the Siren's Den is like the cutting room. It's sort of like an indie underground, like New York rock music scene. And the two of them have a very complicated, somewhat romantic relationship. But the main rock star, Skylar Cole, really just loves attention and using people. She is a siren in every sense of the word. And basically, Remy, who's the singer-songwriter, ends up becoming the star that she wants to be, writing music about this woman. But it proves how empty fame is, and that writing comes out of heartbreak. It's like where music comes from, and that love is love and love is blind, and you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's a comedy for the kids.
It's for the children, for the kids.
Yes, for the children.
That's awesome. And so it's crazy because, you know, I think a lot of people in the industry do feel the need to create their own work at this point. But usually it means a cabaret at the duplex. You know what I mean? I'm going to get up and tell a story for an hour and sing my favorite songs. You wrote a book musical. Like you pulled a Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Kind of, and I certainly didn't set out to do that. So it's all based on a true story that then kind of took on its own life. But for a good, I guess, 7 years, I had a friendship with a Broadway actress who I idolized, and we became very close. And she actually wrote and starred in her own musical and performed her own songs at the Cutting Room. And I met her in college and was just like, that's everything I want to do. And so I wanted to be her. I wanted to do what she was doing. And we became friendly, and it became complicated. And then it ended very badly. And she was like, no, you're just a fan. Like, this doesn't mean anything 7 years later. Like, it went downhill. It was very, very ugly. And I wrote a lot of songs about her and for her while we knew each other, and gave some of them to her. And then obviously more songs were written as my heart was completely shattered. Right. And then I guess for my own closure, like when there's something that happens that's so awful and you can't control it, you can control it by writing about it and by telling the characters what to say. And I think it was kind of my own form of therapy. But then I just kept going, and the songs that I wrote for her and about her like made their way actually into the show. And then somehow it like got finished. It took a good 8 years of working on it before the first table read, and then I submitted to a festival just to see what would happen. And it was like a half an hour of the show, or maybe 15 minutes was the first one in the New York New Works Theater Festival. And it was the first time I got to see my own work up on stage. I wasn't in it at that point. I was just in the audience watching it happen, like watching my own story play out before me. And it was just the most artistically fulfilled I had ever felt. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I want to keep going with this. And I guess it resonated with a lot of people. They related to the story. It was really raw, and more people just wanted to jump on board and keep getting involved. And the more I posted about it, the more people got involved. And the next thing I know, a very old friend of mine was like, so how much money do you think it would take to produce this? And he came on board as the producer after readings and workshops and festivals and blah, blah, blah. Suddenly I had someone interested in producing, and he was like, let's do this. And suddenly I had a 14-person creative team, and I was auditioning the best talent in Manhattan. And that's when I decided to finally be in it after many years of developing it from the other side. So it all just kind of, it was a whirlwind, and it just happened.
That's freaking amazing. And especially like, this is just one slice of who you are. You are an accomplished performer outside of writing your own material. What was your first big thing? You were in a pretty big thing as a kid, right?
Yes. So I started performing. My mother made me take dance classes when I was 7, just because I sat home all day and I didn't want to play sports, and I didn't want to like go out with the other kids. I hadn't like found my thing. So like dance classes were all right. And then there was a musical theater class within the dance studio, and they put on a big recital, and I had my first singing solo, which was a duet of A Whole New World. So I'm now 8 years old. This is the first time I've ever sung on a stage. And I was like, this is it, man. I found it. So then I wanted to do community theater, but until you've done theater, they don't let you do theater. It's like a catch-22. Right. So this musical theater class had the kids perform in a full-blown musical at the end of their session, which was Pinocchio. So I did Pinocchio at 9, and I'm like, great, now I have a credit. Now I can like go out and do theater. That year, or at the end of that year, that is when the audition ad for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat on Broadway came out, and they wanted children's choirs composed of 25 kids. They were going to choose 4 choirs for Broadway. And so these musical theater teachers were like, do you guys have any brothers or sisters? Like, can we make 25 people and become a choir? And somehow we did, and we got cast. So then by the time I was 10, I was on Broadway.
You were right there at the stage door.
There she is.
There I am.
There she is. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry, I had to show that real quick. That's so awesome. So you made your Broadway debut at 10 years old. 10 years old. That's crazy. And do you remember who was Joseph at the time? Because I know a lot of pretty famous.
It was Michael Damian, and I was madly in love with him, even at 10 years old.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, how exciting. Okay, so you did Joseph when you were 10, and you have continued to perform. You have, I think, some pretty significant off-Broadway credits, right?
Yes, the off-Broadway also regional credits. I know, well, I guess it would be fun if you would talk about the off-Broadway shows, because they go from like kid-friendly to hard R.
Yeah. XXX. Yes. So I did Pinkalicious, the off-Broadway children's musical, for, I want to say 8 years, like from when it started at New World Stages to ending up on Bleecker Street. And I played every role, and I swung. And then by 2013, I was somehow doing Pinkalicious in the mornings for the children, and Showgirls, the musical, off-Broadway at night, at a couple different theaters, but most memorably XL, this the giant gay club. And so that was really 2 extremes to do in one day, my Pinkalicious mornings and my Showgirls evenings. But what
I saw you in Showgirls, as you know. And I knew you, we had already worked together in some dinner theater. And so I knew you were amazing and really fun and talented. And it was just a tour de force. It's really what I remember most about that show. And it's not just you. I'll never erase that image of you on the chair, the back of the chair, riding it like a pony. Now, yeah, it was really amazing. But you also have done some really impressive regional theater, some roles that anyone would covet. Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to get to play a lot of my dream roles. I think knowing your type and where you fit is very important. Sometimes you have to tell people where you go. And I was like, rock musicals, like rock musicals and musical comedy. That's where I'm at. So I got to be Maureen in Rent in Charleston, South Carolina. Rock of Ages, I was Regina in Arizona. This past summer, I was Lady of the Lake in Spamalot in Virginia. Also, Elizabeth in Young Frankenstein, the Megan Mullally role, which was such a blast. And yeah, Rizzo in Grease. The Grease is not my favorite show.
Aww.
And I will not be watching the Grease sing along instead of the Tony Awards this year, but that's just me. But yeah, a lot of roles that I longed for came into fruition all over the country.
Right.
Now, we met, actually, we met when you were a tour guide, but it's not, and I always think, oh yeah, I met Rory when I was a tour guide, but that's not true because I became a tour guide because of you.
Right.
One day we were doing some dinner theater in New Jersey, something like that. We were riding home on the train.
Yeah.
Riding into like, what is that, Penn Station or whatever? Where is that? Yeah, Port Authority, wherever we were. And we were on the train and you said, oh, I have a tour in the morning. I have to get up early. I said, oh, you have a tour in the morning? We're doing this dinner theater. You said, oh, I'm a tour guide. And I was like, what's that? And you explained it to me. And I said, I'd like to try that. And so then I started working for the tour company that you were already working for. I'd love to hear, you also tell us about the other jobs, because you are always working, like always working in theater and always working elsewhere.
You want a list of all of the jobs that I lost due to the pandemic? All of the jobs I no longer have? Yeah, let's see. I was tour guiding for 3 different companies. So I did a Prohibition speakeasy tour, which went to some cool bars around Hell's Kitchen. I did a Statue of Liberty / Ellis Island tour and a Brooklyn Bridge tour, which I was very much looking forward to doing once the weather got nice, because I did it all winter long, like out in the freezing cold. And I was so happy for when it was going to be spring and I'd be out there tour guiding during busy season. I also, my favorite is the Madame Morbid trolley tour, which is on a like funeral trolley throughout Brooklyn, around Williamsburg and the surrounding towns. I'm also a brand ambassador for an agency that would supply me with all different kinds of liquor. And I'd go to liquor stores and like give out samples and tell them about the product. And I got to keep all of the free liquor, like sometimes really expensive bourbon and stuff. So I have quite a nice supply at home. Then there was my murder mystery dinner theater company that I've been involved in for over a decade. And they managed to keep a virtual show going even during this quarantine time. Sometimes I worked the door for a dueling pianos show in Midtown. Mm-hmm. I know there were more.
Wasn't that you I saw dressed up as Elmo in Times Square?
Probably at some point in time. I've written blogs. I choreographed Once on This Island at a middle school in New Jersey last spring. So sometimes I will choreograph or give master classes for kids. Basically whatever I can make a buck doing to supplement income while I either while doing performing work in New York or in between performing work, because I do go out of town a lot for the regional gigs. So I need flexible jobs that are still there for me as soon as I come back home, which has been really great and really flexible until they were all gone.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
now they'll come back. They'll come back
we'll
eventually.
we'll see. So you know, actors are always on the hunt, I think, for jobs that have that flexibility. And you know, in New York City, I think the three of us, our worlds are so filled with tour guides now because we've done it for so long. But honestly, before I did it, it was not even something that I even realized was an option. I assumed that I'd have to wait tables, you know, and I think that cater waiting or waiting at a restaurant are kind of the default things. So when I discovered tour guiding, I know personally for me, it was great because at certain times it didn't feel like work. You know, it was such a different quote unquote day job. So do you experience that? I mean, Gesundheit. You seem to tour a lot, you know, with a lot of different companies. So it's clearly something you enjoy doing, I hope.
Yeah, no, I love it. I got into it at the start of 2013. I was in my 12th year of waiting tables, like every restaurant in Manhattan, including Ellen Stardust Diner, which is a fun one. But at some point over Christmas, I just had my breaking point, was like crying on the floor in the middle of Ruby Foods. Like, I cannot do this anymore.
Oh.
Just that moment where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not this.
Right.
So by January of 2013, I quit and I was like, I don't know what's next, but it has to be something. And I interviewed with Walk-in Broadway, where I would lead very small groups throughout the Midtown Theater District with a headset. There'd be music and like celebrity interviews on the headset in between me showing them the outsides of Broadway theaters and things like that. And I'm like, this is great. I'm talking about something that I personally am passionate about, that I love to talk about. I'm done in 90 minutes. So there were like 1 or 2 tours a day, got beautiful tips. And like my joy for the subject spread to the people. So I worked at that company for a couple of years until I branched out into other areas and I got to learn a lot of history as well. And as an actor, it feels like putting on a show. Like I memorize the script. It's me sometimes in front of a microphone, spreading my knowledge, kind of entertaining, throwing in jokes, you know? So I've been doing that for a long time. And it's the one thing I thought, well, there'll never be a shortage of tourists. So there will always be work.
Oh, right.
I
know. But now, Rory, let's talk about Experience First, formerly New York Tour One, because that's where we are right now. And that's how I met you. And I know when you told me about this and I was like, Bobby, I didn't know this was a thing. I've always lived in New York. I'm like, tour. And then you explained it to me. I said, oh, that sounds like fun. And you recommended me to the owner. And when I went in there, the first thing he said to me was, oh, I hear that Rory recommended you. We think very highly of Rory.
Aww.
And so tell us about some of your experiences as a tour guide with Experience First, specifically the Broadway tour. Did you ever do that tour?
No, for them, I did the Soho, Chinatown, Little Italy tour.
Ah, so you never did the Inside Broadway tour?
No, because I was doing the other Broadway tour at the time.
I see. See, that's a funny thing because Bobby and I did that Inside Broadway tour a lot. And it's funny, all the people that did that tour, everybody had their own little spin on it, you know? So tell me, Rory, if you had done the tour for Experience First, what would be a couple of the theaters that you would make a point of talking about, or shows that you might make a point of stopping and talking about?
Well, there are some that have a lot of personal meaning for me. And I think that tourists really like, if they're taking a Broadway tour, being led by someone who is actually an actor, who has actually performed in these theaters and had experiences in these theaters. I think that's really exciting for them. And of course, I also know about some of the ones with really great ghost stories. So Those are always fun to point out too. But for me, the Minskoff Theater, because that's where Joseph was, like, hey guys, this is where I made my Broadway debut. It's where the Lion King is now and will be till the end of time. And also the Niederlander, because that's where Rent was. So for 14 years, I was there. That was my home. We've since painted over the graffiti wall, but there's just so much history there that I love to tell about. But then, of course, the very haunted New Amsterdam. The Palace Theater's haunted with the ghost of a tightrope walker.
Yes, you could still hear the screams.
Louis Borsellino.
After the theater closes.
Yeah.
That one's right there. That one now is right there in the center, right near, if you're standing at George M. Cohan.
Yep.
If you're facing George, it's over there.
Well,
street on your right?
It used to be.
Well, I haven't been there in 3 years. Where is it now, Bobby?
They're supposedly raising the entire theater, not just the stage, but the entire historic thing, 3 stories in the sky, because they're going to put a shopping mall underneath it.
Okay.
But
Red Lobster.
Heard that they may not be bringing the theater back
at all.
Yeah.
Where's the ghost going to go?
Into Red Lobster.
Oh my gosh, I saw Aida there 14 times. I have happy memories of them.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a landmark, I believe. Don't quote me on that.
It is a historic landmark, yeah.
I think they may have don't quote me on any of this. This is just rumors I've heard. I think they may have damaged the building, and that's why. Anyway, it used to be there. It used to be right there.
Well,
don't quote me. We should Google it. We should Google it afterwards. To our guide.
Rory, I also have another question, because I have to believe that things are going to open up, that we're going to find a way to revisit New York in a safe way. I have to believe this. I do believe it. I mean, I really do believe it. I'm not just saying it. And when I think of Rory, it's funny because I remember me and Rory going to a diner and I had a tuna melt with fries, well done. And you were telling me about writing Siren's Den at this little lunch that you and I had. And it was one of the last times I even saw you in New York City. That's how long it's been since we were hanging out in New York. And I also, one thing I remember about you, I did see you after that, but one thing I remember about you is you knew where the best happy hours were. The best $5 margaritas.
Oh, well, now you have to share those because.
Yes. So when you're back in New York and you're hanging out in the theater district, what are some of your secrets for like the best happy hours and best hangs and that kind of thing?
I mean, I believe it was Blockheads that had, they're probably more than $5 now. It's been a few years, but Blockheads right underneath Worldwide Plaza. I was a big frequenter of Bar Bacon in Hill's Kitchen, like 54th and 9th. I don't even like bacon. I just liked the bartender. But anyway, if a lot of people do like bacon, so they put it in the cocktails and the desserts. You can get like a bacon milkshake, bacon lobster mac and cheese. That's pretty crazy.
Our bacon is so good. So good. They do chicharroni nachos. So instead of tortilla chips, it's pork rinds.
Oh my God.
Bacon in everything. Continue.
Oh,
sorry. Continue.
Great diet food at Bar Bacon there. I love the Galaxy Diner. If you like diners, because they just have something for everyone. 46th and 9th, and the whole ceiling is like a solar system. It's very Galaxy. I always like the lights in there. One of my favorite places, it's like 2 subway rides from the theater district, but Art Bar on 13th and 8th, because it looks like a regular bar when you walk in, and then there's this red curtain, and you might think it's the kitchen, but just keep on walking, and then it's a lounge with like a fireplace and couches, and I think it's $8 martinis, and they serve food till 2 in the morning. So if you know about the secret back room, then that is a very cool place to be.
Tip.
Yeah.
Now, I want to just shout out right now to Facebook. and see if anybody tuning in has any questions, comments, any questions you'd like to ask Bobby or myself, or especially ask Rory. And while we're kind of, I'll monitor that and see if anybody chimes in. I'd love to know, Rory, can you tell us a little bit about another play or musical? This one I'm not familiar with, that you wrote, called Aftershocks.
Yes, Aftershocks is a full-length play that was in the New York Winterfest, and I think there were 140 or so plays and musicals, and this was one of 4 nominated for Best Play, and I was really, really excited about that. And it's about the lingering effects of trauma. Oh, there we are.
There you are, an aftershocks.
Like aftershocks, like in an earthquake, how sometimes the lingering effects of something awful that happened in your childhood can be worse than the trauma itself. So it's 2 people trying to be in a relationship, one who's only had physical relationships, one that can't do any kind of physical intimacy, like only emotional, and can they kind of meet in the middle somewhere and make it work.
That's a great idea.
Very sexy. And I got to cast all of the men that played alongside me. And I was, this is power. This it's good times. I had a really great team to help out.
Well, those times will come back again.
If you say so.
I do.
We'll keep hoping.
I mean, well, you are technically currently still in an off-Broadway show, right?
Yes.
I
never started rehearsals. I was 6 days away from starting, but supposedly it's postponed until further notice. It's at St. Luke's. So when we can open up, I mean, we'll have to go into rehearsals first, obviously, but fingers crossed that can happen when it happens. Yeah.
So how are you keeping yourself busy these days?
I sleep a lot, because the days are much shorter when you get out of bed at 3 p.m. Pretty consistently. I've been writing songs. I haven't much felt like sitting down and writing a play with everything going on in the world, but songwriting is coming out because it's like a really emotional thing. I've been practicing the guitar a lot, so maybe I can be better when we get out of this. I've learned to cook for the first time in my life out of necessity.
Yes.
I wrote on Facebook.
You give cooking classes.
Basically, this pandemic has turned me into the housewife I never aspired to be, but here we are. Cuddle with my cat, watch TV, take walks to and from the subway without ever getting on the subway. And
that's the best way to take a walk to the subway, by the way.
I've made it, and now we go back home. That's it. That's about it.
Well, speaking of songwriting, I think we actually have an original song of you performing one of your original pieces. We'd love to share that with the group. So one moment while I get that prepared. This one is called Punish. Mm-hmm. So let us take a look at that right. Here we go.
Whenever I'm bored, you know that I have meltdowns. We've gone through this before. I know that you remember. I know that you were there. So I try to erase me as if you never cared. And I know that you can't love me. And even if you could, you'd still assert your power, crippling me for God. I'm frozen in time as the screen turns to gray. I felt your ecstasy. Do you turn cold to punish
me? Fantastic. All right, here we go.
My mom is always like, why don't you write a happy song? I'm like, because
Oh,
inspiration doesn't come from feeling happy, Mom.
You
I
know-
only write when I'm miserable.
Well, I was listening to that the other day in preparation for today, and my daughter was sitting next to me, and she had no idea what I was looking at. So I didn't say, "Oh, listen to this recording of my friend Rory." I just played it. And she was just sitting there. I didn't even ask her opinion. And she just stopped what she was doing. And she said, "That's a good song."
Oh,
So, yeah. And she's a singer. And she heard that and she kind of wanted to sing it, which is,
that's a newer one. So there's no sheet music yet, but when there is, she'll be the first to have it. Because I love when
it was completely spontaneous, unsolicited. And just thought you should know that.
Well, that made my day. Thank you.
And I want to really kind of reach across through the computer right now and just give you a big hug because I just really want to put my arms around you and say everything's going to be okay. And to kind of, I want to share with you seriously that whether you're performing on a stage or in your room, you're an artist. And that's where the joy is, in the creating of the art. And hang in there.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly haven't stopped singing for even a day.
As all your neighbors know.
Despite my downstairs neighbor really not liking it.
Shall we share what happened with the group watching here today?
Life under quarantine, the life of an artist in quarantine. Share with us.
First of all, when I only moved here over Christmas. So this is like a very new situation here in Forest Hills. And they told me no one lived beneath me. And they were lying through their teeth. So first, like when you move in, you need furniture. You need to like build stuff that comes in. And so one night, not too late, I'm working on a bookshelf and he bangs the ceiling and he comes up and he starts a fight. Another night I was in my socks, unloading a box of books and putting them into my bookshelf and he banged on the ceiling. I'm like, what? I'm not allowed to wear shoes like in my apartment. But anyway, so everything moved over to self tapes, right? Because auditions can't be held in person right now. So if you want to work at all, you have to film your audition and send it in. So I was working on something for Brooklyn. And yes, I know that Brooklyn's a very screamy, like high belting musical, but you do what you got to do. And it was 5 p.m. on a weekday. And he came ringing my bell, pounding. I'm like, what is going on? I opened the door and he's like, you can't be doing that. You're not on Broadway. And I wanted to be like, well, sir, no one is on Broadway right now because Broadway does not exist at this very moment in time. But thank you very much. And just screaming at me that it's about respect. And yeah, that's why I'm doing this at 5 p.m. and not midnight. Like I'm quiet during the quiet hours. But he doesn't come up nicely and be like, hey, I'm like taking a nap. Would you mind doing that at this hour of the day? Like, even if you ask him, when is a good time for me to sing? No, it's not about that. It's about respect. And like, he's a bully and he knows that I'm a young girl and he's just a large older man. And he just comes up to terrorize me.
That's awful.
So that's been swell. And some days I feel like I don't want to bother him. And then it's like, but I'm a singer. Like I need to sing or I'm going to lose my mind while being locked in my apartment.
Well, and you have to keep your chops up also. You got to keep your chops up because it's going to come back. And
tomorrow.
What's going to, so this is your job. This is your work. I wish I could come over there.
Well, for him to say you're not on Broadway, well, how does he expect you to get on Broadway? Let you sing so you can book a Broadway show so you can sing over there. Oh my goodness.
Well, Rory, you keep singing.
Actually, I'm understudying in Wicked right now, but it's just closed. So I wanted to just lie.
Well, keep singing, keep writing. Things are going to open up again. You'll be out there giving tours in the city during the day, and you'll be appearing in your off-Broadway show at night, and you'll be too busy. You'll say, "Oh, remember when I used to sleep until 3 and it was so relaxing?" And it's going to come back. Keep up everything you're doing, and thanks for being here. We do have to stop soon, but so before we do, I just want to check and make sure and see if anybody has any comments or questions. And if you have any, Bobby, any last question for Rory before we go? I know you're the keeper of the list.
The keeper of the list. No, we've covered quite a bit.
Okay, I know.
But one thing I did want to ask, just to tie it all back into tourism. You've guided, I think, all over the city. Do you have a favorite area of the city that not necessarily that you enjoy going, but that you enjoy showing people? Because it's two different things, I think. Sometimes they can be the same, but I know there are places in the city that I enjoy going with friends or to hang out on my own. But then there are also places that I particularly love showing tourists because it's magical to watch. Anyway, that's...
I really love doing the Brooklyn Bridge tour more than I thought I would. Before shadowing that tour to learn it, I had never been on the Brooklyn Bridge before. I didn't even know you could walk across it. Oh. And I thought you drove across the bridge, or you could walk on the edge and not be hit by a car. But to have that walking path and see those views like over the water, I'd never get tired of that view. And then going into Dumbo, which is such like a trendy neighborhood that I'll never be able to afford to show that to people and all like the hidden sights of Dumbo after being on the Brooklyn Bridge. I really enjoy that.
Well, and then the Brooklyn Bridge is kind of like an early like feminist victory, right? Because
it is, and a great story. A woman oversaw the 14 years of building it. Little known fact.
Little known fact.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rory, for joining us, and thank you for sharing all this lovely stuff about you and your life. Linda, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think I talked enough.
Ooh, can I make a quick plug?
Please do. Plug away. Tell them everything.
Interested, on the iTunes store, it's like on your phone. I don't know where it is online, but that little app that has the star on it on your phone that says iTunes Store. If you open that up and you type in my name, Rory Nogi, the Sirens Den demo CD will come up. It's 10 songs, professionally recorded with a whole bunch of fabulous singers. And you can purchase that or like stream for free large chunks of the 10 songs that we worked so hard on. So
that's awesome. And we'll see if we can get that underneath in a link on YouTube.
Yeah, please, if you're interested in learning more about Rory's show, take a download. I think it's an important time during all of this COVID nonsense to support artists. And that's a very easy way to support an amazing person like you who is stuck at home and you can't go out and create things in the world. So please download her CD, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. We will see you next Monday. Visiting Broadway is now on Mondays officially. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Rory.
Thank you.
Bye, Bobby.
Bye.